You're watching Wisconsin Eye, an independent, nonprofit public affairs network, engaging the citizens of Wisconsin since 2007 through access to government proceedings and public policy events.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Visti, and I am the Executive Director of the Office of Crime Victim Services at the Wisconsin Department of Justice. On behalf of Marcy's Law for Wisconsin and Wisconsin DOJ, I want to welcome you to the 2022 inaugural Crime Victim Rights Conference. We are truly excited about the conference that we have put together for you. 500 people are registered for this event, and many of the sessions will be live streamed on Wisconsin Eye. Conference attendees are from a wide range of fields, including victim witness professionals, victim advocates, prosecutors, private bar attorneys, social workers, judges, probation agents, and more. I want to give special recognition to Ann Rufo of Legal Action of Wisconsin, who generated the idea for this conference. I also want to thank the many professionals who helped plan this conference from several state agencies and nonprofit organizations, including Marcy's Law for Wisconsin, Wisconsin DOJ, Wisconsin DOC, Wisconsin State Courts Office, Legal Action, Lotus Legal Clinic, Wisconsin Judicare, and Rape Crisis Center, Dane County. Finally, I want to thank all of you for coming together to be a part of the conversation about victim rights in Wisconsin for the next 2 mornings. For those of us who work in victim services, this conference is honestly like a dream come true. Before I introduce our plenary session speaker this morning, I would like to take care of a few housekeeping items. First, a reminder to register on HOVA and access the conference through the HOVA platform. HOVA has much more to offer than just links to the various sessions, so I would encourage you to explore the platform over the next 2 days. Additionally, you will be able to access recordings of the conference sessions for 90 days after the conference through the HOVA platform. Last week, you were provided a link to a video entitled Fundamentals of Victim Rights in Wisconsin, Post Marcy's Law. Hopefully you've had a chance to watch the video prior to today as background for the conference. If not, I highly recommend watching the video, as it is excellent and provides a solid foundation of information about victim rights in Wisconsin. As I indicated, the conference today will begin with a plenary session. Following the plenary session, there will be 2 breakout sessions for the remainder of the morning. For the breakout sessions, you can choose from 3 different targeted audience tracks: the criminal court system track, victims attorney track, and survivor empowerment and advocacy track. You are welcome to attend any of the 3 tracks and bounce between the tracks throughout the conference. One caveat is for this morning's sessions on the criminal court system track. The 2 breakout sessions this morning in that track are really just one continuous longer session on victim rights enforcement. It is strongly encouraged that you attend the entire 2-session block if you are interested in this topic, rather than jumping in and out of this double session. Tomorrow, we will begin with 2 breakout sessions and end the conference with a plenary session. The final plenary session will be a conversation with National Victim Rights expert Meg Garvin, who is the director of the National Crime Victim Law Institute. Meg would love to answer any questions you have, so if possible, please submit your questions for Meg through HOVA by the end of the day today. Throughout the conference, you can join sessions by simply clicking on the Zoom link for that session. You will notice that each track will use the same Zoom link throughout the conference, and the 2 plenary sessions will also use the same link. So there will be only 4 total Zoom links for the entire conference. Once you have entered the session by clicking on the Zoom link, you will see that the chat function has been disabled for the conference, but the question and answer feature is enabled. We are allowing anonymous questions, but keep in mind that all attendees will be able to see all of the questions. Attendees will also be able to upvote the questions if multiple attendees have the same question for the speakers. Feel free to type questions into the Q&A feature. However, please understand that speakers may need to answer your question after the conference if time does not permit during their session. If you are looking for speaker bios, presentation materials, or anything else conference related, you should be able to access those items on HOVA. Finally, for the attorneys in the audience, we have applied for continuing legal education credits. Okay, I hope I have addressed all of your housekeeping questions, but if not, feel free to message me in HOVA and I will do my best to address any needs or concerns that you have throughout the conference. It's time for me to shift gears and introduce our speaker for the first session this morning. Our first speaker today is Nella Kalpick. Nella is the Director of Outreach for Marcy's Law for Wisconsin. Many of you have met Nella over the past 2 years in her work for Marcy's Law. And for those of you who have, you know that there is so much more to Nella than her work as an outreach director for Marcy's Law. Nella is a survivor of domestic violence. Nella is an immigrant from the Middle East, originally born in Serbia. Nella is an advocate. Nella is a mom, a mother of 3 boys. And Nella is a friend to many of us. Nella is also fearless. It is this fearlessness that landed her a job as a legislative and policy aide to the Senate Minority Leader, a seat on the Governor's Council on Domestic Violence under 2 governors, and an appointment to the Crime Victim Rights Board. And Nella's fearlessness is why so many of you, including me, have gotten to know Nella before today. Today, Nella is going to share with all of you her journey as a survivor turned advocate. Nella's session will begin shortly at 8:45. In the meantime, grab a cup of coffee, tea, water, maybe change out of your pajamas, whatever makes you comfortable to join us for the rest of the morning. Have a great conference.
Dobrodošli. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you all for taking the time to join us today. I hope that over the next couple of days, we all walk away from this conference with not only having learned something new, but also with a new friend. I think I have a lag in my clicking on my slides, so just 1 second. Here we are. Again, welcome. So my story starts back in my home country of Serbia. Ciao. In Serbian, that means hello and also goodbye. For those of you who are travel lovers, and I know that there are few of you today in the audience, if you ever happen to find yourself visiting Serbia, and you must, here is saying that you should learn. Nema problema. Say it with me. Nema problema. And that means no problem. And it's a saying that characterizes Serbian spirit so well. Whatever happens, there is always a solution, a way out. Everything will be okay. For those of you who don't know, Serbia is located in the center of the Balkans. For most of the 20th century, it was part of Yugoslavia, and because of its colorful history, Serbia has a variety of cultural and architectural monuments like medieval monasteries with their fresco paintings and icons, beautiful mosques, medieval and Austro-Hungarian fortresses, Baroque churches, just to name a few. Serbian culture has a very rich folklore as well, and it consists of beautiful national traditions and customs, traditional costumes, which differ from one region to another, folk dances, and songs. Belgrade is the capital of Serbia, and it is the city where I grew up. If you take a look at the slide, you will see Kalemegdan Park on the left side. And Kalemegdan Park is the largest and most important historical monument in Belgrade. And this is where I actually used to eat ice cream, something similar to your dreamstickle. It was orange and vanilla, delicious. And I also used to play with my friends there because my school was just a spitting distance away. Beograd, as we say in Serbian, is a city. It's a city that has a soul. And at the very heart of this city, you will find streets from the old times, like Knez Mihailova, for example. You can see it in the right corner up there. Knez Mihailova is a pedestrian zone with incredible architecture, as you can see. And the street follows the central grid layout of the Roman city of Singidunum, which is a Roman name for Belgrade. And what's cool about it is that it's actually one of the main access road that used to lead to the city, and it still corresponds to that today. And this is where I lived. Actually, right here at this corner, I found the exact picture, and I would drink water from this fountain on my walks here, and my hair would always fall to my face. I never managed to keep it away. And Skadarlia is another famous street, and you can see it in the right corner, right down. It's short and curved, and it includes a bunch of restaurants and hotels, art galleries, antique shops, you name it. You will see, if you ever find yourself in Skadarlia, you will see bands playing Serbian brass or traditional urban music, and actors dressed in traditional Serb garments perform down the street. And here is also one of my favorite restaurants that I would visit frequently with my family, and it's called Tri Šešira, means three hats. 30 years ago, the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, or Socijalistička Federativna Republika Yugoslavia, was one of the largest, most developed and diverse countries in the Balkans. Yugoslavia was a federation made up of 6 republics, So we had Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, and Slovenia. Yugoslavia was a mix of ethnic groups and religions, with Orthodox Christianity, Catholicism, and Islam being the main religions. Since 1991, there have been 4 wars in Yugoslavia. 4 wars. The 4th was the deadliest, and it happened in Bosnia and Herzegovina. On March 24th, 1999, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, better known as NATO, started the airstrikes against Yugoslavia. Just waiting for the slides to change. Here we are.
Queste sono le immagini dei bombardamenti della NATO su Belgrado. Sono le ore 19:30 del 24 marzo del 1999, 9 anni fa. Per vincere la guerra, gli aerei della NATO distruggono 82 ponti. Raffinerie di petrolio e 14 centrali termoelettriche, 13 aeroporti e 20 stazioni ferroviarie e 121 fabbriche. Per vincere la guerra, gli aerei della NATO infliggono alla Serbia 100 miliardi di dollari di danni, provocano 2 milioni di disoccupati e uccidono per errore almeno 500 civili e ne feriscono a migliaia.
I remember sitting under the window, watching the night sky colored in beautiful colors, mesmerizing really, shades of orange, yellow, and red piercing the sky, rubbing against the stars. And it meant death. I can never forget the sound of that siren going off every night, signaling that we should run for a shelter. That was the sound of my childhood. And this time, the wartime nursed a generation that grew up in the Balkans with a feeling that Yugoslavia had collapsed, right, without being replaced by something meaningful or viable. They felt abandoned, and with few opportunities at home, some of these children of the country that did not exist anymore, they turned to a life of crime. And I say this because this is probably my first memory of the world with no criminal justice system to turn to in situations where someone becomes a victim of crime. Like my mother, Olga. My mother was a small business owner working hard at her private medical practice office. One day, Olga came to work only to find that everything was gone, just gone. All her medical equipment was hauled onto the truck overnight and stolen. And with no functioning criminal justice system, my mother had no one to turn to. Mafia was the law of the land, and for those who did not want to seek their help, They were left unprotected with no path to justice. We lost everything. And it would not be the last time I lose the world as I knew it. Okay, so take a look, if I manage to get to that slide. Take a look at the money that is shown on the slide that's coming up. And what if I told you that I had many of them? And I mean by the pack. Like, take a look. And I know that sounds crazy. Yes, I was a billionaire. Well, I know this story is just getting crazier and crazier. But I should also clarify that I was a billionaire in Serbian dinars, okay? And here is what that means. In 1994, Yugoslavia's economy was in a vortex of hyperinflation, with prices rising by the hour. Stores nearly emptied of goods, and the value of dinar actually estimated at 11, hear this, 11 or actually 18 million to the dollar. And I remember Ružica, my grandmother, she would run to collect her paycheck and then run to the store to buy whatever she could with that money. And one day, I remember her coming home, and guess what she had in her hand? 1 pen. That's right, 1 pen. That is all she could purchase with her paycheck. We missed things like bananas, or it was impossible to buy chocolate, for example. My uncle Peter would bring us a smuggled chocolate, and I remember rationing it. 2 pieces per day. 2 pieces. And I still have a habit of slowly sucking on the chocolate cube to make it last longer. We had no access to gas, and it was the most valuable intel to be able to learn which gas station will get some gas on the next Friday. And then what people would do, they would just go and line up in their cars, leaving them there even overnight, just parked, to form this very long line just to be able to get a few gallons of gas. Okay, I'm getting good at this now. So do you remember what I said earlier about Serbian spirit? Nema problema. Here's a touching example of that. Look at these pictures. People finding beauty and joy amongst the unthinkable. So while I was preparing for this presentation, I really enjoyed putting these pictures together for you guys, and they really took me down the memory lane. I thought about my grandfather Anđelko, you can see him here in the picture, who he was a Navy admiral, and he was born in Croatia, but the Navy transferred him to Belgrade, which is where my father Ranko met my mother. And years later, I was caught between Serbia and Croatia, 2 countries at war. Born to Croatian father and Serbian mother, I was nobody's child. At least that's how it felt at the time. And I actually had to apply to get Serbian nationality, which meant years passed and I was without the citizenship or papers in the country where I was born at. So here, let me just scroll to the next slide. So here are my parents. Here is me at high school. And my sister right there. Okay. So with that said, you can only imagine how excited I was when my father Ranko gifted me a trip to Egypt. A young girl hungry for life and adventure. This is where I met him. And this is where I fell in love. This is also where my new world was built and lost again. I thought it was love when he would ask me to call him 30 times in a single day. I thought it was love when he would show concern for my safety and restrict my movement because of it. I thought it was love when he would shower me with excessive attention, watching my every move. And little did I know that I was being groomed into a violent, physically abusive relationship. The signs, they were all there, but my naivete prevented me from seeing them from what they were. A few years later, we got engaged and then married. And unfortunately, I don't have the recorded video of my beautiful wedding. But here I found few clips that I hope will give you just a little taste of Egyptian culture. So in the first video right here, well, I won't tell you, just watch.
Okay then guys, we are heading, I've gone Australian. We are heading to get some food. I'm not sure what we're gonna get yet, but we're just gonna go into the street market and night market and just explore a little bit. So here we go. I think we've got a local wedding going on, an Egyptian wedding over here. I'm gonna have a look.
Okay, so I did not exactly dance like this in the street, but here is another video that actually really looks a lot like my wedding, and it is showing the entrance where you have bride and the groom, and then you have drums and well, you'll see. So just like this bride, I was also dancing like this, and I was not afraid to be embarrassed in front of people. Like, who cares? But it was a beautiful night. So in the Middle East, Adhan means it's a prayer, and it calls Muslims around the world to pray 5 times a day. And it can be broadcast around the neighborhood, recited from within the mosque building, or sounded from a sidewalk. And it is a sound of Adhan on the dawn of my wedding that reminds me of the uneasiness I was feeling in that moment. And I remember just brushing it off, right? I was thinking, oh, you know what? I can always leave.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar,
And it was something about the peacefulness of that morning that felt soothing, but boy, I was wrong. A few days before I was about to give birth to my firstborn son, my husband, he walked into the room, and I was there with my Aunt Tanya, who came all the way from United States to be there for me. I was typing something on my laptop, and he got upset over something. I don't even remember what it was. And he came over and he just banged the laptop over my hands. And I'm telling you this because my reaction at that time was very, very different than the one my aunt had. She said, Nella, he's going to hit you one day. And I said, no, he would never do that. Or so I thought. I was holding on to my world. Not long after the birth of my first son, we moved to Kuwait. To the city of Kuwait, to be precise. And this is where my whole world came crashing down. I need to have a sip of something. I remember being in a fetal position after it stopped. I was curled up in a ball. No tears, just numbness. I could still hear the belt snapping, and I could see his glee. He thought he owned me, my body, my life, my soul, all his. How dare I disobey him? My son was sleeping in the room next to us, so I knew I could not scream or cry, but I knew that I will have to leave, escape him, but not without my son. And here is another vivid memory of the helplessness I was feeling, knowing there is no criminal justice system that I could turn to, no police to make a call to, no prosecutor who would argue my case, a victim witness, legal advocate, or victim rights attorney who would support me through it all, or a court where I could be heard. Just silence all around me. One night he came to me and demanded that I pack my bag. I was going back to Serbia, he said. My plane was leaving in a few hours. I better hurry. And in a daze, and scared, I followed his orders. My son, fast asleep, my baby. I just got done nursing him a few hours ago. And next thing I knew, I was on a plane flying back to Belgrade. Back at home, I had no choice to stay or leave. I could make a decision not to return, right? But I could not leave my son, and I had to go back to him. And so I did. I did, knowing that the abuse would continue and probably get even worse. And it did. I was forbidden to work. I was forbidden to drive. I was forbidden to choose my friends. I was spat on, but I could say nothing. So life continued. And as you can see, there were moments of happiness interspersed with sadness, but fueled with determination to survive, to escape. I gave birth to my other 2 sons. Aren't they just the cutest? Okay, this is the moment when I should just like stop talking to you and just like looking at the pictures of my kids because they're just too cute. I'm sorry. They are the most adorable people and my lighthouse. And eventually we moved back to Egypt, right? And let me make sure I get where I need to be. Oh, yeah, you can tell how much fun I had putting these together. So like I said, eventually we moved back to Egypt, and here comes the Arab Spring. Egyptians took to streets to fight for their freedom of oppression, I'm sure many of you know, and this resulted in Hosni Mubarak's regime being overthrown. This also brought a different kind of unrest. Coptic Christians were being prosecuted. My husband's family was Coptic Christian. A lot of them were fleeing the country, and I saw this as an opportunity to escape. I was able to convince my husband to seek asylum in the United States of America. And here is what I am going to say about the concept of cultural shock. Okay, are you ready? So many times people connected with more complex life experience, right? And often that is true. However, in the curious case of Nella Kalpik, in my case, I was being used to electric doors. And so this was my first big bang, the way how I was just like thrown into the thrust of now living in a different country and culture as well. So yes, I was in New York, and here I was very confidently, walking into the Toys R Us store without realizing that the door will not open for me. So here I'm just like walking straight to the door, and people had a very good laugh watching me just banging into the door straight on. And yes, I know. If you pictured it, you're laughing. You're welcome. So living in the United States, months passed, and I remember first time I refused to listen to his command. It was when we were in the car and he ordered that I take off my red lipstick. I looked through the window, trees zipping by, and I knew there was help out there. I knew I was not alone anymore. Can you imagine how that feels? I knew I was not alone anymore. And I said no. That is the gift this country has given me, the right to say no. So a year and a half after our arrival to the United States, I was able to escape with my children. I actually had to put my kids in the car and drive 950 miles all the way to Madison. And okay. And to all the law enforcement on this call, I know you're there. I apologize. I truly do. I did not realize how bad of a driver I was. And really, that is on Virginia DMV. They issued me the license. How in the world they gave me a license? I do not know. I only had 3 hours of instruction, and somehow I managed to pass the driving test. But it saved my life. I call it my freedom drive. Just imagine how empowering driving on a highway for the first time in your life, driving towards my freedom. I was 34 years old. Also, another example of my cultural lack of context, I was in awe of how polite drivers were here. And then I realized you actually have penalties for reckless driving and you enforce it. So there is that. So here I was in this new city, Madison. I felt the world is mine. I can do anything I want to do. People would tell me it would be hard for me to get a job, but I refused to accept that as my reality. I did not come to United States so that someone can define what my possible looks like. Before I even knew what the word networking really meant, I found myself surrounded by so many dear friends and wonderful people that I was lucky to meet. I just knew I had to give back, make some sense of what happened to me. I was recommended and then accepted to Wisconsin Women Policy Institute. And this is where I learned about the policy work. And that is when I decided I wanted to work at the Capitol. So I was lucky. I was lucky to be recommended for an internship with Senate Minority Leader at the time, Senator Jennifer Schilling. And mind you, I did not have a resume like you American people, no judgment there. But you guys, you start building your resume since you're like 3 years old. I, on the other hand, literally had to Google, how to write a business letter. Like, how do you write a business letter? I mean, I'm not even kidding you. And, but hey, I did not let that stop me. That, and the fact that I thought that putting 2 stamps on the letter will make it travel faster because I paid more for it, right? So let me just go here. I hope you're enjoying this just as much as I do. So many beautiful memories. So 1 month into my internship, Kara, the chief of staff, invited me to this like huge room and set me at this table at the Senate. And I thought they were about to let me go. I think that was the 10th time I forgot to put a full stop on a letter too. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are they going to do to me now? And instead, they offered me a full-time position if I were willing to accept it. Just imagine that. And I always say, American dream is the people of this country, the opportunities that come when someone believes in you. I'm not going to cry, I promise. And you guys, you are the American dream. So in 2017, I was nominated for the governor's Courage Award by DAYS, which is a wonderful local domestic violence shelter. And months later, I received the award, which was given to me by Wisconsin State Governor Scott Walker. And this was also the first time, I remember it well, this was also the first time that I delivered a public speech. And to my own surprise, I was shocked. I realized that I actually really just love to talk. I love to talk a lot and to a lot of people. So I had a lot of fun. And here are some of those memories. That's me eating a chicken wing because, hey, that's an important memory too. This is when I received the award. However, this was not the first time I met Governor Walker, and actually, it was a conference where he was delivering his speech when I approached him, tapped him on his shoulder. After I sneaked into the media room, and I asked him whether he would like to meet with me, have coffee or something, and he did. We did not have coffee, but we did meet at the Capitol. And this is where I made my case that I would be perfect addition to the Governor's Council on Domestic Abuse. And not too long after, I was appointed to that council by the governor. And later, as Michelle mentioned in her remarks, I was appointed to Crime Victims' Rights Board by Governor Evers. So if you look at this slide, look up, and you can see, I think this is one of my favorite pictures. It's me walking on the frozen Wisconsin lake in my heels. I refused to give up my high heels, people. I refused. So there you go, Wisconsin. Anything is possible, okay? And in the years to come, I was able to do many things dear to my heart, including fashion shows, art symposiums, and music festivals. And here are some of those memories right here. Isn't that so much fun? Oops. One more. Hopefully that takes us to the next slide. I am in a loop here. Let me try one more time. Train. Something is happening. I can't get through my slide. Okay, thank you. So throughout it all, I remain a survivor of domestic violence, and it is that life experience which has led me to doing the kind of work that I do today, advocating for victims of crime. As you heard, I lived in countries where there are no resources for victims of crime, where there are no ways in which a victim can seek help and feel safe doing it. Very important. No one wakes up in the morning thinking they or their loved one may become a victim of crime, but every day someone does. No one wants to be in that place. And that is why I do what I do. For those of you who don't know, I am the outreach director for Marcy's Law for Wisconsin. And in my role, I work with criminal justice system stakeholders and victim advocates on the implementation of Wisconsin's new crime victims' rights constitutional amendments, better known as Marcy's Law. Take me to the next slide, please. Take me. Yes. Okay. Watch this.
Kad god nam dođe neko u goste, govorio mi je da šutim, jer sam glupa. Nazivao me raznim pogrdnim imenima. Nije mi dao ni da se šminkam. Bio je previše ljubomoran.
Gore od batina i uvreda je bilo ono što je radio našoj djeci. Bol, poniženje, osjećaj potlačenosti, strah i tuga su postali naš život. Nemam roditelje, familiju, prijatelje, nemam nikoga. Živjela sam pod njegovim krovom i slušala njegove naredbe. Bila sam ponizna, ali opet nisam valjala.
Trpila sam ga zbog običaja. Znate kako je to kod nas. Tamo gdje se udaš, moraš i da šutiš. A da odeš i ostaviš, velika je sramota. Samo sam željela da Da i moja djeca imaju oca u sebe, pa kakav god on bio. Zato sam i trpila sve ove godine.
Svaki fening do kojeg smo došli ostavljen je u kladionici i u kafani, a frižider je prazan. Kad crijeva zakrči gladna, ja sam dobijala batine.
Bol.
Govorio mi je da šutim.
Bilo sam poniženje.
Nije mi dao ni da se šminkam.
Ja sam dobijala batine.
Zato sam i trpila sve ove godine.
Ženo, šta god da si.
Majka.
Čijeka,
Sestra.
supruga. Zaslužuješ da budeš poštovana, voljena, prihvaćena i lijepa. Zato ne trpi. Prijavi nasilje. Neko će i tvoj glas čuti. I znaj da u ovome nisi sama.
Once you're married, you're silenced. Let that sink in. Once you're married, you're silenced. Serbia passed laws protecting victims of domestic violence in 2017. Women in Egypt are often subject to violence, not only from family and community members, but also by agents of the state, including the police. In addition, women are constantly subjected to violence in the form of sexual harassment and abuse on the street, and more than 80% of Egyptian women are victims of female genital mutilation. It is deeply rooted in Egyptian culture, but fortunately, the practice is declining over the past 30 years. But women's right to lead a life free of violence is not widely internalized within Egyptian society, resulting in lack of reporting by victims of violence, lack of perpetrators' awareness of what the criminality their lack of awareness of the criminality of that violence, right? Lack of response from police and the legal system, and perpetration of violence by authorities themselves against women in order to pressure their male relatives. And here is a story. Tant Amal, she was my ex-husband's aunt, and she was physically assaulted by her husband. And I know this because I remember her telling me that story. When her brothers got together to have a conversation with her husband, she dared to speak up. She dared to speak up. That was her crime. And because of that, because of her unruliness, the brothers turned her over back into her husband's hands, saying she was his problem from now on, knowing what she would face after they left. Women in Kuwait. Women in Kuwait described facing abuse from family members and husbands, saying they were either scared to go to the police or they were turned away when they did. 155 countries have legal protections against domestic violence, but until now, Kuwait had no explicit law setting out protection measures against domestic violence, or even shelters where they could go to. Some laws, like Article 153 in Kuwait's Penal Code, even, listen to this, it even provides men with reduced sentences for killing of women found in the act of adultery. On September 2020, gosh, I don't know if this COVID vortex is impacting you, but I always struggle with timelines. Kuwait began catching up to that global norm and issued a new law on protection from domestic violence after the National Assembly passed it on August 19th. Services for victims of crime differ dramatically from country to country, and they're shaped by a variety of cultural, social, and economic variables. And overall, I think more victim assistance resources are available in Europe, Asia, and Latin America than in other regions. But in many nations, services for victims of crime either are limited or do not exist at all. And the notion of a victim advocate who can provide basic victim assistance, such as, crisis intervention, referrals, counseling, court accompaniment, financial assistance, safety planning, advocacy, or case management, is typically rare. Of course, we all know that victims' rights, they expand beyond just sensitive crimes. Many domestic helpers are brought to Gulf countries for work. Most come from Philippines. There are other countries like India and Africa, but most come from Philippines. These women have little to no rights once they arrive to the destination country. Picture this. A mall where you can go to purchase a helper. I know because I've seen it. It is a building with small offices, bland looking. And inside, there are catalogs with women that you can choose from. And outside are returned women, domestic helpers, who, for one reason or the other, somehow did something to dissatisfy the household they worked for. They're usually cheaper. People also, they get hired based on their nationality. Yes, you heard that right. In the paper, just regular newspaper, you will find a job description, for example, and it will always state what nationality they're looking for. That will also determine the salary, as the same job will provide a different salary depending on nationality. So if you're one nationality doing the same job as another, you will be making different amount of money. So let's talk about the contrast. By contrast, here in the United States, we have a system. And I know the system is not perfect, but at least we have a system. It takes all of us. As Muhammad Ali said during his Harvard speech in 1975, and I think this is probably or maybe the world's shortest poem, possibly. Someone in the crowd challenged him to kind of just like, hey, tell us a poem. And he improvised on the spot. And what did he say? He said, me, we, me, we. It takes all of us. And this brings me back to the very moment when I saw the Statue of Liberty for the first time. And you have to see this slide. This is actually the picture. I know it's not the best quality, not the most beautiful picture of the Statue of Liberty you've ever seen, but this is the exact picture I took I took that day. And it is the moment when I saw the Statue of Liberty for the first time. Of course, I saw it in American movies before, and some of you know I learned my English by watching The Full House, okay? But on this day, we were on a boat heading towards the Staten Island. And this is actually the very picture I was able to take on that day, like I said. And it has, I think it was kind of like, how can I describe it? It was a misty day. And as we were approaching towards the Statue of Liberty, the mist kind of dissipated and it gave way to what I think was the most majestic view I've ever seen. And there it was, the Statue of Liberty. My tears just started rolling down my cheeks, right? And why? Because that was the first time in many, many years that I felt most organic human freedom. I knew I was free. I was free. It does take all of us. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I have. I could not stop smiling. So many wonderful memories. And I wanted to include as many pictures as I possibly could. Why? Because it is you guys who are heroes in this work. It is you guys who do this work day in and day out, our heroes. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you again, to thank you for taking the time to meet with me. Those of you who I haven't met yet, I look forward to meeting you in the future. And I will leave you just saying again, it takes all of us. And maybe me in a cute dress right there. Queen, my favorite band. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
This program is a production of Wisconsin Eye, an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit media network with a mission to inform, educate, and engage the citizens of Wisconsin. Wisconsin Eye is the nation's first and only independently funded state civics broadcast network, providing gavel-to-gavel access to government proceedings and events at the state capitol.